big names are going to come out soon. Will you be shocked when you see certain names, or you pretty much already have everything figured out?
What's done in the dark will come to light.
You slap them on the wrist and you bring up every source of trauma for the victim. But nobody wants to stop and think about that. We're not talking about the victims that are still going through the shit right now with other people who are running to cover their ass and deleting their social medias, Pink, Megan Fox, Tyra Banks, Steve Harvey. Why you running?
Orlando Brown just stepped back into the spotlight, and this time, he's not talking crazy. He's lining up his story with Alli Carter's, and the connection is making folks real uncomfortable, because if what they're both saying even partially overlaps, then this Epstein situation might go way deeper than anyone's ready to admit. But before we go any further, let's slow this all the way down, because what's happening right now isn't just another wild internet moment. This feels different. For the first time, two voices people used to dismiss are starting to sound like they're telling the same story, and that's where things get uncomfortable, because now it's not just Alli Carter talking, it's Orlando Brown too. Two completely different people with different paths, describing systems that sound way too similar to ignore. So now the real question is, coincidence or connection? Let's start with Orlando. For years, folks wrote him off. Every time he spoke, it got labeled as a breakdown, a rant, or just another viral moment to laugh at. But what if that was the easiest way to ignore what he was actually saying? Because Orlando didn't just wake up one day talking about Epstein. He's been hinting at this for a long time, long before documents dropped, long before names started circulating again, and back then nobody wanted to hear it. Now here's where it gets interesting. Orlando didn't just make general claims. He described patterns, talked about environments, hinted at systems involving young entertainers being placed around powerful people in situations they didn't fully understand. And at the time, people said it was too extreme to believe, too detailed, dark, so it got dismissed. But now those same details are being revisited, and they're hitting different because they don't sound isolated anymore. They sound familiar.
Jeffrey Epstein created this saga, and this is what he is great at doing. He's great at kidnapping someone, turning them into putting them in a dead celebrity's body and screwing the life out of them after he makes a ton of money off of their ass on his private little beach. So you have a private little beach full of celebrities and bodies getting screwed, and nobody cares because they're supposed to be dead. And this has been a major market that he tried to blame on Oprah Winfrey. Never calm down.
Man, calm down.
Diddy is in jail. You telling me to calm down? Puff is in jail, and you telling me to turn down? Nigga. All right, cool, whatever. Whatever he says, whatever you say, the party's in jail. And we all white still.
Now bring Alli Carter into this, because her story didn't start on social media either. She's been speaking for years, and just like Orlando, she was dismissed almost immediately. Called crazy, called a liar, ignored. But here's what changed everything: the Epstein files. Once the DOJ dropped over 3 million documents back in January, people didn't just look at the names. They started looking back at the people who had been speaking before the files ever came out.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the act.
And that's when Alli's story started gaining attention again. Because of what she described, it wasn't random, it was structured. She talked about systems where kids weren't just exploited, they were moved, transported, placed in environments controlled by powerful people. And she didn't describe it like someone guessing. She described it like someone who had seen it.
He locked me in containers with his shipment of kids. There were kids in there that didn't speak English. There were kids that were sick and that were already died. There were babies. There were babies that were 6 years old, and I'll never forget them just crying, and everybody was just staring at them. Everybody was just staring at each other. Nobody knew whether or not to move.
Now pause right there, because this is where the two stories start to overlap. Orlando talked about young individuals being placed into certain circles. Alli talked about kids being moved through systems tied to influence and power. Different words, same pattern. And that's what's making people stop and really look at this. Because if two people years apart with no clear connection are describing similar setups, then what are we really looking at here? And it goes deeper, because Alli didn't just speak in general terms. She claimed she was taken into environments she didn't choose. Spaces where people with status operated without limits.
Tracking the border was for who? Child Protective Services is your supplier. Is anybody going to talk about that? The immigrants that are coming across the border, that all those they were just scooping up out of boats and out of the water, they're now coming in and they're throwing them right into the system. Aurora, Colorado, Springfield, Ohio. Where do you think all those are going?
She described being treated like something that could be selected, used, and discarded, not a person, a commodity. In her words, a party favor.
I was a party favor.
What does that mean?
I was a party favor. I was somebody you could take off the table.
So you're telling me they set
I set children on a table.
Like when you go to a birthday party and they have gift bags for everybody that comes that have candy and toys in them,
Yep.
and they set them on the table. So you're telling me at the freak off parties, they put on the table instead of gift bags, and then people can do what?
Take you off the table.
Now think about that for a second, because Orlando in his own way hinted at something similar, pointing toward a system where control, power, and exploitation existed behind the scenes of entertainment. And this is where the timeline matters, because people keep acting like all of this started with the Epstein files, but it didn't. These stories existed before the documents, headlines, or public pressure. And that's what makes this harder to ignore, because if someone speaks after information is public, you can say they're repeating what they heard, but if they spoke before, now you have to ask, how did they know? Now let's widen the lens for a second, because this isn't just about Orlando and Alli. There have been other voices too, like Corey Feldman, another former child star who spoke about what goes on behind the scenes in Hollywood. And just like Orlando and Alli, he was dismissed at first, until people started revisiting what he said years later. He talked about environments where young actors were surrounded by powerful individuals with influence over their careers. He described systems where silence was expected and consequences came if you spoke out.
I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures.
Now ask yourself, why do these stories keep sounding the same? And then you have voices like Cat Williams, who didn't necessarily claim to experience it directly, but kept warning that powerful people would eventually be exposed.
All of these big dick deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is, TG Jakes, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way. The truth is the light.
At the time, people laughed, but now folks are going back and rewatching everything he said, because the pattern he described, power, influence, protection, is the same pattern people are seeing in these files. Now let's talk about the files themselves, because when they dropped, people expected clarity, answers, closure, but that's not what happened. Instead, what we got was information with gaps, names mentioned but not fully explained, details but heavily redacted, and that's exactly what Alli Carter called out. She didn't just say release the files, she said release everything. No protection, no selective exposure, because according to her, partial truth is still a lie.
Pam Bondi, this is my verbal contract with you. My name is Allison Leilani Ray Carter, and I give you full consent to unredact my name in any ledger that you find, especially to connect it to any of the islands. I volunteer for you to unredact my name and dig into my CPS files for CPS corruption out of Riverside County, California. Child Protective Services. Majority of the names that you'll find in my Child Protective Services file will also probably show up in the ledgers. Those ledgers are insanely detailed. I know some people don't even understand what a ledger means. It's what people are considering or calling the Epstein Black Book. That Black Book has information of when a child was sold, where, what outfit they had on, what time, where they came from, if they came from Child Protective Services custody, if they were a missing child, if they came from over the border, if the child is sick, how much exactly they were sold for. Everything is in those ledgers. We're doing a very good job protecting predators, and if you guys can please, I am begging you.
Now think about how this all connects. Orlando speaks, gets dismissed. Alli speaks, gets dismissed. Years pass, files drop. Now both stories are being taken seriously. And here's where things get even more intense, because Alli didn't just talk about her experiences, she talked about consequences, threats, being followed, losing safety and stability.
Our house is gone. This is the price. This is the price of speaking out. What was our beautiful 3-bedroom acre home on 21225 Standing Rock Avenue, because everybody has the address, because organizations that were attached to Marks, Sawyer, and many other organizations decided to put out the address, my license plate to one of my cars, and many other of my shit. So here you go. You can have it, right? Because this is what happens when you speak out. This is what happens.
Now, whether people believe every detail or not, that's consistent with what we've seen in other cases involving powerful individuals. Silence is often enforced, not requested. And Orlando, look at what happened to his public image. Every time he spoke, it became a joke, a meme, pure entertainment. But what if that narrative served a purpose? Because if people laugh at you, they don't listen to you. And if they don't listen, they don't question anything. But now things are changing and folks are asking questions. One real dude hit hard saying, "Why aren't we doing something, fellow American people?" Another wrote, "I have major feelings about the LAPD and their coroners. They're part of it or being paid off by the elites." That's all I keep thinking. LAPD needs to be overhauled. There are names, naps. So when are these investigations and arrests going to happen? So now let me ask you this. Do you think Orlando Brown was telling the truth all along and people just weren't ready to hear it? Or do you think the internet is connecting dots that don't really belong together? And when it comes to Alli Carter, do you believe she's exposing something real, or is her story being amplified beyond what's actually proven? And if more unredacted information actually comes out, do you think it's going to confirm what these people have been saying or completely change the narrative? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because one thing is clear, this story isn't finished, not even close. And if you think this was wild, click on the next jaw dropper loading up now. It's just as crazy.